The scent of pine and cinnamon is the first thing I notice, a familiar embrace as I step from the crisp winter evening into the heart of our home. It is Christmas Eve, and this house, our house for 23 years, is at its most beautiful. The grand fir in the corner, a tradition Franklin and I have upheld since our first Christmas together, towers nearly to the ceiling, adorned with a lifetime of ornaments. Each one is a memory. The fragile glass ball from our honeymoon, the clumsily crafted popsicle stick reindeer from when Marcus was in kindergarten, the tiny ballet slipper marking Tisha's first recital. The lights twinkle, casting a soft, multicolored glow over the room, a kaleidoscope of reds, greens, and golds reflected in the polished hardwood floor. In the kitchen, the soul of our celebration simmers and bubbles. A rich, savory aroma fills the air, the unmistakable perfume of a honey-glazed ham slow-roasting to perfection. There is collard greens with smoked turkey, candied yams glistening with brown sugar, and my mother's cornbread dressing, a recipe I have guarded and perfected over the decades. The sound of Nat King Cole's velvet voice crooning, the Christmas song, from the vintage record player in the corner completes the tableau. It is a scene I have meticulously crafted, a testament to a life built on love and stability. This is my sanctuary. My eyes sweep the room, and a profound sense of pride swells within my chest. Marcus, our son, is home from his first semester at law school, looking more like a man and less like my little boy with each passing day. He is animatedly explaining some point of constitutional law to his father, who listens with a patient, if slightly distant, smile. And then there is Tisha, my beautiful Tisha. She is curled on the plush velvet sofa, a glass of wine in her hand, laughing at something on her phone. Her career in marketing is soaring, and the confidence it has given her is a radiant light in the room. She is not just my sister's daughter anymore. She is a successful woman, and I feel a vicarious thrill at her accomplishments. We raised her since she was 16, after the accident, and seeing her thrive is my greatest victory. Franklin is unusually talkative tonight. He is a reserved man by nature, an architect who speaks more through his blueprints than his words. But this evening, he is effusive, his deep voice a constant, warm hum beneath the music. He keeps steering the conversation back to Tisha. "You should have seen the presentation Tisha gave last quarter," he says to Marcus, though his eyes are on her. "She commanded that boardroom. It was a masterclass. I told her if I had half her poise at that age, I would have been a partner years earlier." Tisha blushes, waving a dismissive hand. "Uncle Franklin, you are too kind. It was just a deck of slides." "It was not just slides," Franklin insists, his tone holding a weight I do not quite recognize. "It was vision. It is remarkable, the clarity you have. It makes me feel—" He pauses, searching for the word, and his gaze lingers on her. "It makes me feel invigorated, reminds me what it is like to build something from the ground up." A strange, cold trickle, like a drop of ice water, finds its way down my spine. I dismiss it immediately. It is Christmas Eve. He is proud of her. We are all proud of her. This is what I have always wanted, for our family to be this seamless, loving unit. I chalk the sensation up to the latent paranoia that sometimes whispers to a woman of my age, a fear of things changing, of the children growing up and leaving the nest too empty. It is nothing. I force a smile and turn back to basting the ham. The oven's heat a welcome warmth against the sudden chill I will not acknowledge. The meal is a symphony of comfort and tradition. We gather around the heavy oak table, its surface gleaming under the light of the crystal chandelier. Plates are piled high with food, and the conversation flows easily, filled with laughter and shared memories. Franklin pours a rare, expensive burgundy he has been saving. He is still the center of the conversation, his attention consistently orbiting Tisha. He refills her glass before it is half empty. He asks her opinion on the new downtown development. He hangs on her every word. Marcus seems oblivious, engaged in a story about a quirky professor, but I find myself watching, really watching, the dynamic between my husband and my niece. The unease I had dismissed earlier begins to coil in my stomach, a tight knot that the delicious food cannot loosen. It is in the way Franklin leans forward when Tisha speaks, the way his laugh is a fraction too loud at her jokes, the way his eyes crinkle at the corners with a fondness that feels new. Different. It is a subtle shift, a change in the atmospheric pressure of the room that only I seem to feel. Finally, Franklin taps his fork against his crystal wine glass. The clear, ringing sound cuts through the chatter, and we all fall silent, turning to him. He stands, a tall, distinguished figure in his crisp holiday sweater, his face softened by the wine and the firelight. He raises his glass. "A toast," he begins, his voice warm and full. "To family, to being together. To this beautiful home my wife has created for us." He smiles at me, and for a moment the knot in my stomach loosens. This is the Franklin I know. But then his eyes shift, moving past me, and they settle with an unsettling intensity on Tisha. "And most of all," he continues, his voice dropping into a more intimate, almost reverent tone, "to Tisha, to the woman who makes me feel young again." The silence that descends is not peaceful, it is suffocating. It is a vacuum that sucks all the sound and warmth from the room. I hear the soft crackle of the fire in the hearth. I see Marcus's fork, frozen halfway to his mouth, his eyebrows knitted in confusion. I see the brilliant flush that creeps up Tisha's neck, staining her cheeks. Her eyes are wide, darting from Franklin to me and back again, a silent plea in their depths. My own smile is a rigid, painful thing plastered on my face. My heart is a frantic drum against my ribs, young again. The words echo in the silent room, bouncing off the memories etched into every ornament on the tree. It is clumsy wording, I tell myself desperately. He is a man of numbers and lines, not poetry. He meant she brings a youthful energy to the family. He is proud. That is all. He is just proud. But the seed, small and sharp and poisonous, is planted. It lodges deep in the fertile soil of my mind, and I feel its first cold tendrils taking root. The rest of the evening passes in a haze for me. The dessert, a bourbon pecan pie that is usually my triumph, tastes like ash. The cheerful music from the record player grates on my nerves. I move through the motions of cleaning up, my body performing the familiar rituals while my mind is a prison of observation. I watch them. Every interaction is now a piece of evidence to be examined. Franklin helps Tisha clear the table, his hand brushing against hers as he takes a plate. A simple, accidental touch, but I see it in slow motion, and I hold my breath. He laughs at something she murmurs, and the sound, which moments ago was the bedrock of my life, now feels like a betrayal. Tisha is quiet, subdued, perhaps feeling the weight of my gaze. She avoids looking directly at Franklin, and that avoidance feels more damning than any flirtation. Later, as we prepare for bed, the house is quiet. Marcus has retired to his old room, and Tisha is in the guest room down the hall. Franklin is already in bed, his reading glasses on, scanning an architectural digest. He looks so normal, so comfortable. The man I have shared my life with for over half of it. "It was a wonderful evening, Clara," he says, not looking up from his magazine. "The food was perfect." I stand by the bedroom door, my hand on the light switch, watching him. The words are right there on the tip of my tongue. "What did you mean, Franklin? The woman who makes me feel young again? What did you mean by that?" But the fear is a clamp on my throat. To give voice to the suspicion is to make it real, to shatter the beautiful Christmas Eve illusion forever. So I say nothing. I simply click off the light, plunging the room into darkness save for the sliver of moonlight filtering through the window. I slip into bed beside him, my body stiff. He reaches over and pats my arm absently, a habitual, sleepy gesture. "Good night, dear." I do not answer. I lie on my side, staring at the digital clock on his nightstand, its red numbers burning into the dark. 11:59. 1 minute until Christmas Day. And all I can think as the clock flips to midnight is that the foundation of everything I have built, everything I cherish, has developed a hairline fracture. I cannot see it, but I can feel it, a faint, terrifying tremble deep within, waiting for the next shock to split it wide open. The warmth of the day is gone, replaced by a cold vigilance that I know, with a sinking certainty, will not let me sleep. The gilded frame of our wedding photo no longer held warmth. It was a cold, hard rectangle on the nightstand, a monument to a version of our life that was beginning to feel like a lie. The Christmas decorations had been packed away for weeks, but a chill had settled into the bones of our house, a permanent winter that Franklin seemed determined to ignore. He moved through the rooms with a forced normalcy that was more painful than any outburst. He would kiss my cheek in the morning, ask about my day over dinner, his voice a careful, even tone that felt rehearsed. I was living with a ghost, a handsome, smiling ghost who wore my husband's face. My suspicion was a weed, its roots digging deep, fed by every evasive glance, every phone placed face down on the table. It festered in the silence between us, a silence I had once found comfortable but now felt suffocating. I would catch myself staring at him across the room, studying the curve of his mouth when he thought I was not looking, searching for a flicker of the guilt I knew must be there. "You are so distant lately," I said one evening, my voice too quiet in the hum of the dishwasher. We were on the sofa, a respectable foot of space between us. "It is as if you are not even here." He did not look up from his laptop, his fingers tapping away at some financial report. "I am right here, Clara. It is a busy season at work, you know that. You are being dramatic." Dramatic, the word was a slap. It was his new weapon, a simple, effective way to dismiss the ache in my chest, to make my intuition feel like hysteria. But I was not being dramatic. I was being observant. The investigation had begun quietly, a secret mission I conducted in the shadows of our life. I started to notice things, small things that assembled into a terrifying mosaic. The way his phone, which used to charge on his nightstand, now spent the night in his home office. The text message notifications that were always just a name, never a preview of the text. Mark from the gym, Sarah from accounting. Always a first name, always a context that made it seem innocuous. And then the memories started to surface, unbidden and sharp. Odd moments I had brushed aside because they did not fit the narrative of our happy marriage. The business dinner last October that ran so late he came home smelling of a perfume that was not his own, a scent I had foolishly attributed to a colleague's wife. The weekend he had to help his brother move, a story that now felt flimsy, a cover for a blank space in his schedule. I had been so trusting, so blind. The evidence was not in a single damning piece. It was in the negative space, in the absences and the excuses. The emotional conflict came to a head on a rainy Tuesday. It had been brewing for days, a storm gathering pressure. He was on his phone, a small, tight smile on his lips as his thumbs flew across the screen. I watched him from the kitchen doorway, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. "Who are you texting?" The question came out sharper than I intended, laced with an accusation I could no longer suppress. The smile vanished. He turned the phone over on his thigh. "No one, just Mark. We are trying to settle on a time for squash this week." It must be a very amusing conversation about squash schedules. I crossed my arms, hugging myself against a sudden chill. "You were smiling." He sighed, a long, weary sound that was meant to make me feel like a burden. "Clara, what is this? What is going on with you? You have been like a different person since Christmas. I cannot do anything right." "This is not about you doing anything right, Franklin. This is about you lying to me." The words hung in the air, stark and final. His eyes narrowed. "Lying? About what? Please enlighten me. What grand conspiracy am I a part of?" "I do not know yet," I said, my voice trembling. "But I know something is wrong, I feel it. You look at me and I do not think you see me anymore. You are somewhere else." He stood up, his height suddenly intimidating. "You know what I see? I see a woman who is determined to invent a problem because she is bored, because our life is too stable, too good. You are looking for cracks where there are none. You are going to drive yourself crazy with this paranoia." Gaslight. The term came to me from an article I had read, and now I understood its insidious power. He was so calm, so reasonable. He was framing my pain as a character flaw, my intuition as instability. For a terrifying second, I wondered if he was right. Was I inventing this? Was I the problem? The doubt was a poison, and he was administering it with surgical precision. "I am not crazy," I whispered, but it sounded like a plea, not a statement. "Then stop acting like it," he said softly, but there was no warmth in his voice. He walked out of the room, and I was left alone, shaking, my certainty crumbling into dust. But the doubt did not last. It hardened into a cold, clear resolve. I needed proof. Not a feeling, not a suspicion, something tangible. And then I remembered the tablet. An old device Franklin had used for years before upgrading. He had said he was going to recycle it, but he was a pack rat with technology. It was probably still in his office closet, in a box with other obsolete gadgets. I waited until he left for a supposed late meeting the next day. My hands were ice cold as I opened the closet door in his study. There, beneath a stack of old printer manuals, was the tablet, its black screen dusty and blank. I prayed it still had a charge. I pressed the power button. The Apple icon glowed to life, and a moment later, the password screen appeared. My heart sank. Of course it was password protected. I tried his standard passwords, our anniversary, his birthday. Nothing. I was about to give up when a memory surfaced, a conversation from years ago. He had complained about forgetting passwords and said he used the same one for everything non-essential, a password from his childhood. The name of his first dog, a scruffy terrier named Bandit. My fingers trembled. As I typed BANDIT, the screen unlocked. For a moment, I just stared at the home screen, a generic landscape photo. It felt like trespassing in a sacred, dangerous place. I opened the photo gallery. Thousands of images, mostly screenshots, old memes, pictures of us. Nothing. I was about to close it when I noticed an album at the very bottom, separate from the others. It was not titled. The icon was a gray box. I tapped it. It prompted me for a password. My breath caught. A folder within a folder. Hidden, I typed Bandit again. The screen flickered, and the folder opened. The first image was a selfie of Tisha, her head tilted against Franklin's shoulder, both of them smiling, their faces glowing with a private joy. The timestamp in the corner read, October 12th, months before Christmas. Months before he had looked me in the eye and called me his everything. I scrolled, photo after photo. Tisha laughing at a restaurant I did not recognize. Franklin with his arm around her waist on a hiking trail. A picture of them in a car, her hand resting on his thigh. It was a catalog of intimacy, a second life documented in vivid color. Then I opened the messages. A thread, long and dense, saved in a note-taking app. I cannot stop thinking about you, Franklin had written. Last night was perfect. You are perfect, Tisha had replied. I wish I did not have to go home to her. The words blurred on the screen. The betrayal was not a mistake. It was not a moment of weakness after too much champagne. It was a sustained, deliberate deception. A parallel universe where he was her Franklin, where their love was real and I was the inconvenient obstacle. The Christmas toast was not a reaffirmation of his love for me. It was a cruel performance, a lie he spoke directly to my face while his heart, his real heart, was miles away with her. A sound escaped my throat, a strangled gasp that was part sob, part choke. The tablet slipped from my numb fingers and clattered onto the desk. I backed away, my hand flying to my mouth. The room tilted. The man I had built a life with, the man I had trusted with my deepest secrets, was a stranger. The foundation of my entire world had not just cracked, it had vaporized. And as I stood there, trembling in the ruins of my marriage, one thought echoed in the crushing silence, a question with no answer. What do I do now? The house had never felt so large, nor so silent. It was a tomb built from memories, each piece of furniture a headstone for a life I had thought was real. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one by the bay window where I had spent countless afternoons watching the world go by, a spectator in my own existence. Today, I was the director. The proof was not digital, not a copy. It was the original leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Franklin's elegant, treacherous script. I had found it tucked away in a locked box at the back of his wardrobe, a place he thought I would never look. The key had been simple enough to find, hidden inside a hollowed-out book on his shelf. He had always been so arrogantly sure of his own cleverness. My hands were steady as I laid the journal on the coffee table. It was a still, heavy object, a depth charge waiting to detonate the placid surface of our lives. I had asked Marcus and Tisha to come over, citing a serious family matter. Franklin was puttering in his garden, unaware that the harvest he was about to reap was one of his own sowing. I could see him through the window, carefully tending to his roses, a picture of paternal peace. The irony was a sharp, cold stone in my gut. Marcus arrived first, his brow furrowed with concern. "Mother, what is this about? You sounded so grave on the phone." "It is grave, Marcus," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. "Please, sit down, we will wait for Tisha." He sat on the sofa, his large frame seeming to shrink under the weight of the room's tension. He kept glancing at me, then at the journal on the table, then back at me. He could feel it. The air was thick with impending ruin. Tisha arrived minutes later, her expression a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. "I have a committee meeting in an hour, Clara. This had better be important." "It is the most important conversation this family will ever have," I replied, gesturing for her to sit beside Marcus. She did, but she left a careful space between them. The chasm was already there, invisible but deep. It was time. I walked to the back door and called out to Franklin. "Franklin, could you come inside, please? We need you." He wiped his hands on his gardening trousers, a genial smile on his face as he stepped into the living room. The smile faltered when he saw the solemn faces, the formation of our little tribunal. His eyes darted to the coffee table, and for a fleeting second, a tremor of panic crossed his features. He knew. He recognized the journal. "What is going on here?" he asked, his voice attempting joviality but landing on unease. I did not sit. I remained standing, a prosecutor before the court. "We are here for the truth, Franklin, the entire truth. For 30 years I have lived with a ghost. I think it is time for that ghost to have a name." Marcus leaned forward. "Mother, what are you talking about? What ghost?" I picked up the journal. It felt heavy as a sin. "Your father has been keeping a diary, a very detailed one. I found it this week." I looked directly at Franklin, whose face had gone pale. It seems he has been unburdening his soul to these pages for decades, including his soul regarding the true paternity of his son. The silence in the room was absolute. It was a physical presence, sucking the oxygen from the air. Tisha's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus looked from me to his father, his confusion rapidly curdling into something darker. "What is she saying, Dad?" Marcus's voice was low, a dangerous rumble. Franklin attempted a laugh, a dry, brittle sound. "Clara, you are being hysterical. This is nonsense. My journals are private, my thoughts, you cannot take them out of context." "There is no context for this," I said, my voice cold and sharp as broken glass. I opened the journal to a page I had marked with a slip of paper. I did not read it myself. I handed it to Marcus. "Read it, aloud." The entry dated May 17, 1993. Marcus took the book, his hands trembling. He looked at his father, a silent plea for denial in his eyes. Franklin said nothing, his jaw clenched tight. Marcus began to read, his voice halting at first, then gaining a terrible, flat momentum. "The boy looks more like him every day. The same set of the jaw, the same light in his eyes. It is a constant torment. I provide for him, I raise him as my own, but the secret is a cancer inside me. I see Sarah in his smile, and I am torn between love for the child we created and a hatred for the man who stole my wife's heart first. I can never claim him, but I can never forget." Marcus stopped reading. The name Sarah hung in the air, a bomb that had already detonated. Sarah was my cousin, who had stayed with us for a summer a year before Marcus was born. She had been vibrant, beautiful, and tragically killed in a car accident 6 months after she left. "Sarah," Marcus whispered, the name a question and an accusation. He looked at Franklin, his eyes wide with dawning horror. "You with Sarah, and you—" He turned to me, the pieces crashing together in his mind. "Mother, is he saying am I's?" "You are not his son," I said, the words final and absolute. "You are the son of Sarah and Franklin. I could not have children. The stillbirth, it left me infertile. Franklin and Sarah, it was a brief, foolish affair. When she died, and we learned she was pregnant, we took you in. We decided to raise you as our own. It was a secret I agreed to keep. Until I learned that it was not the only secret being kept." Tisha was staring at Franklin, her face a mask of shock. "All these years, you told me your family was rock solid. You said it was a foundation. It was all a lie." But Marcus was not listening to her. He was on his feet, the journal falling to the floor. He loomed over his father, his entire body shaking with a violence I had never seen in him. "You lied to me, my entire life. You let me call you Dad. You let me believe I was your son." His voice cracked, a dam breaking. "And you," he whirled on Tisha, his finger jabbing toward her. "You knew, did you not? That is why you have been so distant. That is your secret. You knew and you said nothing." Tisha flinched, tears springing to her eyes. "He told me 6 months ago. He said it was a burden he had to share. He made me swear to secrecy. What was I supposed to do, Marcus? Destroy your family." "You did destroy it," Marcus roared. "You both did. You are not my wife, you are his accomplice. And you—" He turned back to Franklin, his fists clenched at his sides. "You are not my father. You are a pathetic old man who betrayed his wife and then lied to the child you never had the courage to claim." Franklin stood his ground, but his defiance was crumbling. "I did what I thought was best for everyone. I gave you a name, a home, a life." "You gave me a prison?" Marcus shouted, and then he moved. It was not a punch, not exactly. It was a raw, primal shove, 2 hands against Franklin's chest. The older man was thrown backward, stumbling over a footstool and crashing to the floor with a sickening thud. He lay there, gasping, not from pain but from the utter collapse of his authority. I did not move to help him. I watched, a strange, cold detachment settling over me. The reckoning had arrived, and it was as brutal as I had known it would be. The fallout was immediate. Marcus did not look at me or his father. He stared at Tisha, his eyes dead. "Get out," he said, his voice flat and empty. "Get your things and get out of my house. I never want to see you again." Tisha sobbed, but she did not argue. She fled the room, and a moment later, we heard the front door slam shut. Marcus then looked down at Franklin, who was slowly pulling himself up. "You too. I want you out of this house by tonight. You have made your bed, now lie in it. Alone." Franklin opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He saw the finality in his son's eyes, the finality in the eyes of the man who was not his son. He nodded slowly, a broken king exiled from a kingdom he had poisoned, and shuffled out of the room. And then it was just Marcus and me. The silence rushed back in, louder than the shouting. He stood in the center of the room, his shoulders slumped, the powerful man reduced to a lost boy. He turned to me, and the pain in his eyes was so profound it stole my breath. "All my life," he whispered, "I have tried to be the son you both wanted. I built my life on the foundation of this family, and it was sand. It was all sand." He did not wait for my response. He walked out of the living room and up the stairs. I heard the door to his old childhood bedroom close softly. It was the sound of a retreat, a withdrawal into a pain I could not immediately reach. Now, hours later, the house is quiet. Franklin is gone, his suitcases rolled out the door without a goodbye. Tisha is gone. Marcus is upstairs, a fortress of grief. I walk through the rooms, my hand trailing over the familiar surfaces. The family portrait on the wall seems like a cruel joke now, a painting of strangers. I feel a profound exhaustion, but beneath it something else. A terrible, painful clarity. The poison has been lanced. The wound is open and raw, but it is clean. There will be no reconciliation, no happy ending that ties this tragedy with a neat bow. The family unit is fractured, a beautiful vase shattered on the floor. Yet, as I stand in the echoing silence, I do not feel despair. I feel the weight of the truth, heavy but solid. It is a foundation I can build upon. It is my foundation. Marcus's pain is a chasm between us, but he is my son. Not by blood, but by a choice I made 30 years ago, a choice I would make again. That love remains. It is the one thing the lies could not touch. I will rebuild my life on my own terms, with the pieces that are left. I will be there for Marcus when he is ready to emerge from his room. We will navigate the remains of this broken family together. But as I listen to the profound silence of the house, a new, colder fear whispers in the back of my mind. The truth has been told, but its echoes are just beginning. And I know, with a certainty that chills my bones, that Franklin is not a man who will fade quietly into the night. He has lost everything, and a man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous kind of all.